Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cat Chat Live. My name is Nancy Stevens, and I oversee parent and family communications in UK's Office for Student Success. We are so glad that you've made time to join us today. Our topic is priority registration prep. All of our students will be going through priority registration soon for the spring 2026 semester. That's hard to believe, but it is that time. And we know that that can be a process, particularly for our first year students, that might cause some confusion. It looks different than the way that they did it at orientation. And so for them and for all family supporting students going through priority registration, we want to make sure that you have a good basic knowledge for how academic advising works at the university and what priority registration will look like and how students can go through that process with as little confusion or questions as possible. And so we've got a couple of guests joining us today, and I'm going to turn things over to them shortly, but want to offer a few quick reminders about how our Cat Chat Lives work. So we can't see or hear you. And we do want to hear from you, though. We want to get your questions answered. So use Zoom's Q&A feature to communicate with us, and we'll take your questions, as many as we can in our allotted time here today. As any websites or dates of interest or things like that are mentioned, my colleague Kate will be putting those in the chat so that you can refer back to those after today's webinar. If you're not able to join us for the entirety of the webinar today, that is totally understandable. It is being recorded and will be posted in the Cat Chat family community later today for your future reference. If you have any questions that are about topics beyond priority registration, I encourage you to reach out to UK's Office of Family and Civic Engagement. You can contact them at parents@uky.edu, and they're happy to address any questions or concerns that you may have about your student's experience and help you get connected to resources able to best support your student. After today's webinar, you're going to receive a survey, and we really hope that you'll take that and offer any feedback about today's webinar, but particularly about topics that you would like to see us address in future Cat Chat Lives. This is the last one that we have currently scheduled for our fall semester, but we always want to hear about the topics that you would like to see addressed in either before the fall semester is over or coming up in our spring semester. So make sure you share your thoughts and feedback. We're always interested in that. So with that, those are my housekeeping items. And now I want to turn things over to our experts in the priority registration space. We're very lucky to have somebody from the academic advising community and a current student to share information from both of those perspectives. And so I'll turn things over to Rebecca, and thank you both for being part of today's Cat Chat Live.
All right. Thank you so much, Nancy. Hi, I'm Rebecca Serrano. I am the Director of Advising for the College of Health Sciences. Today we have one of our College of Health Sciences ambassadors, Emily, joining us. And so I'll let Emily introduce herself as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Leonard. I'm a junior currently in the College of Health Sciences, majoring in Human Health Sciences pre-pharmacy. And something fun about me is I'm from Hanover, Pennsylvania, so a little bit ways from home.
Thank you, Emily. And she's going to give us some good perspective on what a student can expect using MyUK and how they approach the advising process and getting set up for the spring semester. So first of all, we really view advising as a partnership between the academic advisor and our students. And so each party kind of has their own responsibilities and expectations in that partnership and are expected to kind of communicate with one another and engage with one another in order to get the most out of the relationship. And so I always view my role as kind of the hub for the university. And so I encourage my students to reach out to me if they have a question about anything at all. Like I may not know the specific answer, but I know somebody that could get that answer for them. And so I'm here to mentor them and coach them and be a cheerleader along the way. Ultimately, your students' education, it's their responsibility, it's their journey, and I'm just here to kind of help be the guardrails and guide them along the way. So every student has an assigned primary academic advisor. And you can find that in My UK in the degree planning and registration tab. And so in the right-hand corner of your student's screen, they'll see their advisor's name and also connects them to the calendar where they can book appointments with that advisor. And so when they book the appointment, they can schedule different types of meetings. They can be in person, Zoom, or on the phone. While phone is an option, I would strongly encourage them to choose in person or Zoom because we share a lot of resources. If they're on Zoom, we share our screen and we can show them different links. And it just makes the advising process a lot more rich. Phone appointments are great for like quick questions that you don't necessarily need a screen in order to be able to communicate. So, but the student can choose how they want to meet with us, and then that will send them an Outlook appointment reminder. They'll get reminders as the appointment approaches. And if something comes up, we absolutely understand that life happens sometimes and you might need to reschedule, and they can reschedule that appointment through their appointment reminder. They can also switch the modality. I was just telling Nancy earlier that it's really rainy here in Kentucky today. And yesterday, I think all of my in-person appointments switched to Zoom, and that we can absolutely accomplish everything that we need to accomplish using that modality as well. So they really do have the flexibility to choose whatever works best for them. So every semester, your student will get an academic advising hold placed on their account. And this is just to signal them to meet with an academic advisor to ensure that they are on the right track in order to graduate on their timeline. And so we check in every semester, talk about the classes that they need for the following semester, and help them get set up for priority registration. And we can lift that hold in like a 30-minute appointment that they schedule in advance. But sometimes maybe, the student has been really busy and hasn't been able to schedule a one-on-one appointment. Every college hosts drop-in advising hours, and those are available on the university's central advising website, where you can see the drop-in hours. Some colleges might also offer different registration workshops, or they might do some advising within UK 101 if they have a college-specific UK 101 class. And then in a few minutes, I'll talk about the university's Getting Classy event. So those are all ways to get the holds lifted outside of the one-on-one appointment. But I would strongly encourage your students to schedule appointments early and often with their academic advisors, because the more that we can get to know them through those appointments, the better equipped we are to be able to advocate for them and get them information as it comes across our desks. So like the students that I see frequently, if a job opportunity pops into my email, or I see a service activity that I think they would be interested in, it's very common for me to like shoot an email to them and be like, hey, I saw this and I thought of you. So the more that they can come in and meet with us, the better equipped I am to be able to know them better on a more personal level. And then FERPA. So FERPA is the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. It basically controls the disclosure of personal identifiable information that's contained in a student's educational record. And so the student can opt to allow different people to access parts of their educational record. There is a pretty easy process online if your student decides that they would like a third party to be authorized to access that information. And so they can make whoever they want a FERPA designee. Some information is not protected by FERPA, and that's directory information. That includes address, telephone, email address, their major, dates of attendance, their enrollment status, and any degrees that they have received. and that full list of directory information is available on the registrar's website. The student can also choose to opt out of directory information, and that means that the university cannot release any information about them without their written consent. I will say that if your student elects to opt out, that includes everything. We will not be able to publish their name on the dean's list or even within the commencement program. So just something to consider if you are choosing to opt out of the directory information. And so the student can add designees at any time. They can remove designees at any time. And it's a great conversation to have with your student about how involved that you all want to be in this educational journey of theirs. So I would encourage you just to, to talk with them and ask lots of questions. So now I'm going to turn it over to Emily to talk a little bit about My UK and how a student uses the registration and course planning system.
Okay, so when you log into your My UK, you're going to see this screen initially pop up. These are going to be the classes that you're currently going to be enrolled in for fall, like as in this example, it's fall semester. So as you see, you can see your section, what class it is, the credits, and it'll tell you if you're enrolled in not or not. And on the left side where those 3 stars are, that'll be where your midterm grade pops up. And on the right side will be where your final grade pops up. So at the end of the semester, when the deadline is, your final grades will all be in there. So you can check it and log into My UK and see it very easily. It'll all be right there for you. And then on this slide, you see KHP 118 is waitlisted. I have been on a wait list and it depends on how easily you can get in the class. I would say I was waitlisted number 1, so I was let into the class. If you're high on the wait list, I would say you're most likely guaranteed to really get into a class. Um, but as you see, it'll say in red if you're on a wait list or if you're fully enrolled in the class.
And that is a great opportunity to have a conversation with an advisor
Mhm.
about what the likelihood is that you would get added to that class. And it can depend on, at what point of time we are in the registration process. If the class starts in a couple of days and you're number 9 on the wait list, you might need to start thinking about an alternative plan. But if it's pretty early on in the registration process and it's class that the student really wants to take, it might be okay to go ahead and hang out on that wait list. But it's a great conversation to have with your academic advisor.
So then when you go to register for your classes on My UK tab, you're going to hit the degree planning and registration, and that's going to open a new window, which this is the window that you'll see. And on the right side, you'll see all your advisors or anything to that extent that you could easily make an appointment. So I have my primary academic advisor, and then I have a scholarship advisor. So I'll have that on that side. And then this is just it'll show you if you have a hold on your account, and when your registration window is. And at the top on the right, you can see your selected term. So you can always change that if you want to look at fall semester or something. But this screen is what's going to pop up when you first initially go in to register your classes.
And also it has your assigned registration window. And so I encourage students to put that date and time in their calendar, however they keep track of appointments and stuff, so that they know that that's when the registration window opens, and they can go and actually register for their classes.
So then you're on the menu drop down, there's going to be a bunch of different options. The registration is where you're going to go when you go to register your classes, and your registered courses, it's what's going to pop up after you register. So you'll see everything on a calendar of when your classes are. You can also go to your course planner, a major map, which shows like your major and everything in that, your schedule of classes, um, payment services, your degree audit, academic history, or requesting a major and minor change. So a bunch of different options. So this is the degree audit. Your degree audit is going to show everything like, so mine would show Bachelor's of Science currently through Human Health Sciences, and I'm pre-pharmacy. So mine would show pre-pharmacy at the bottom. So it's going to show everything that you would need in order to graduate. So like your UK core classes, how they're all checked off. That means you're completed and that you're good. And in your degree audit in the center of the screen, the darker green color is how much completed you are towards your degree. And then the lighter green color is the classes that you are registered for. And then the white is for obviously that needs to be completed. So in this, you'll just see everything of your requirements that needs to be completed in order to graduate. And then you can do, so on your degree audit, you can view a bunch of, like, you could run a bunch of different what if degree audits or just all your degree audits in general. So it shows like your major, and like your status. So like at the bottom, the major was political science with a minor in psychology, and the status, Lewis Honors College. So that says you're like in the honors college, and it's obviously shows how much completed you are towards that degree. And then say that you want to switch your major and you want to run a what if audit from the classes you've already been taking. This allows you to run that what if audit. So like you can see on the screen how there's a bunch of different majors that have been run based on your classes. So this allows you, like I said, to see major wise how completed you are. So like if you're in your sophomore year and you want to change your major, you can run a what if audit and talk to your advisor and see if that would be a good option for you to switch. And then yeah, this is
So, if at any point in time, your student talks about maybe wanting to change a major and they've run some what if audits, they've talked to their current advisor and maybe the advisor in the new major, the major change request form is done through My UK as well. And so you can click on the change button to whatever it is that you want to change. It'll ask you a couple of questions about the change, and then you hit submit, and it's routed to the college that major is part of. And a person over there will either approve or deny the request. Some majors on campus are selective and they have an additional application process. And so if the student's request is denied, they'll typically send back a message about why they were denied and what they need to do to actually be approved for that particular major. But it's a pretty straightforward process in My UK.
And then another option that you had in the menu was your financial. So when you click that tab, it's going to show up with all of this information for your bill on why you're getting charged on everything. So like you see in this instance, FAM 253, you had first aid book material. So it's literally going to lay out every charge that you're going to get, and it'll show a description of why you're getting that charge. And then you'll see your total amount due, and you can change the period of like your statement that you want to view as well as your student number. And then so this is, say you're a part of the Lewis Honors College, like on the screen, this is going to show your requirements that again you need to complete for graduation. So as you see, the completed with success are going to be checked off, and then you need 120 or more credits required, and it shows how much you completed and how many more you need to complete before graduation, and then it shows you're registered and everything to that extent.
And the nice thing, your student can go in and plan every course
Mhm.
that they want to take while they're at the university through the course planner feature. And then they have the option within the degree audit at the top to run the audit based on the classes that are planned in addition to all the credit they've already earned and what they're currently registered in. And so you can play with that until until all of the check marks are green, and that way your student knows that they have planned for every requirement in that program. And so this is the course planner that I was discussing, and I'll turn it back over to Emily.
So as Rebecca was saying, this is the course planner. We are going to show like when you first meet with your advisor, they're going to give you advisor recommendations. And so that'll appear on the right. And your advisor recommendations are what you're most likely going to be taking that next semester. So then you can go in and make like a mock course of the courses you want and the sections specifically that you want. So then that would appear in your planned courses. So now that you had all those classes in your planned courses, when you go to register, you would check all of them off and hit the register button when you're registered, when your window opens, and then they will then go into your registered courses over on the left. And then back in My UK, your unofficial transcript is always available to you and it updates as you register for your classes. So, like this coming semester, when you register for your classes, it'll appear on your transcript for the spring, but it obviously won't have a grade or anything to that extent. It'll just show what you're taking. And then you can always request if you would need an official transcript, which is the order official transcripts on the left, but your unofficial transcript is always available to you guys, so you can always check your GPA, or maybe you forgot what classes that you took and want to reference that, so it's always good to reference. I know I just applied to pharmacy school, so I had to manually enter everything off my transcript into the program, so it was super helpful to have that at hand for me. And then the other button in My UK is the schedule of classes. So when your advisor recommends these classes to you to take, so for example, arts and sciences, you can look up course prefix and put those letters in and then the number, and it'll pop up with the what credits or what sections are available. For this one, it looks like the course is not eligible for online registration. So that means you probably need to reach out to the instructor or your advisor to see what's going on. And you can also look at their offering history of when they offered the class and how often they offer it. So this, for example, shows all the sections that you can take. And then as you're making your schedule, it'll show whether this section fits your schedule or does not. So for example, section 1 does not fit your schedule. So it's going to show an X. But if it did fit your schedule, it would be in green and it will show a check mark. And then it also shows how many seats are open in the class and how many waitlist seats are open so that you can plan and register for them as needed. And it also shows the time, where it is, the instructor, and the location of the class.
I always, when students are planning classes, I like to think of it as putting the class in their shopping cart. So they're planning it all out the way that they, how they would like it, using the recommendations from their advisor. And then it'll be ready to go when the registration window opens. I do let them know that, to get a schedule that they like, however, to not get married to it, because things could potentially change if seats fill up, and they might need to pick another section. And so just to be prepared to be somewhat flexible the later we move on in the registration process. So
And then, yeah, do you want to do that?
sure.
Okay.
So there's lots of different holds that could potentially show up on your student's account. The first one is the one that we've kind of talked about already, and that's the academic advisor hold. But there might also be holds from the Student Account Services Office, Parking and Transportation, Dean of Students, potentially one from the Office of Admissions if they still need to submit their final high school transcript. And then there's also some required training that students need to do. And so if they haven't completed those yet, those could show up as holds as well. And so it's prompting them to do some sort of action. And so I would ask, I would ask your students, have you looked at your MyUK? Do you have any holds on your account? And so then you could potentially help them navigate in ensuring that those holds get lifted. The earlier they take action, it seems to flow a lot smoother. There should be a contact email or a phone number on each of those holds to give the student an idea of who they need to get in touch with to get the hold lifted. The advisors can absolutely help them if they're not sure what to do with the hold. And we want them to help them get that lifted as quickly as possible as well. But absolutely don't wait until the day before your registration window opens to try and deal with the holds when you can do that now. And also Getting Classy, the event that I'll talk about in just a minute, is a great place to come because all of the people that issue holds will have some sort of representation at that event. And so if your student is concerned about their holds and they're not quite sure who to ask, they can pop into Getting Classy and find the representative that they need to talk to, and they'll help get that hold lifted. So speaking of Getting Classy, it's November 17th through the 21st. It's primarily at the Gatton Student Center, but on Friday of that week, it will be held in the 90. The nice thing about Getting Classy is that there is an advisor representative from all of the different colleges all together. And so if your student has a minor or if they're interested in changing their major, they can go into one location during this week and get questions answered. Maybe they need to get an override into a particular class. There will be people on hand to help with those things. And so they can help answer questions. If your student is just maybe feeling a little bit nervous, if it's their first schedule they've registered for kind of on their own after orientation, and they just want somebody to get their eyes on it to make sure it looks okay, we can absolutely verify their schedule during Getting Classy. And then, like I mentioned before, there's lots of people there to help with holds. But it's a lot of fun. There's always music. I think this year they're giving away some beanies for students once they get registered. So I would encourage your student to mark their calendar and to stop by, as they're walking through for their classes and things like that. All right. Any questions?
This is such good information that you all have shared and kind of a behind the scenes look at kind of what students see in MyUK, because that's, even as a staff member, not the same thing that I see when I look at MyUK. So families, if you have any questions, use the Zoom Q&A feature. And I've got a few questions that I'm curious about while you all are doing that. I wondered, especially thinking to some of the earlier slides about kind of communication best practices with advisors and advisees. I'm interested in both your perspectives. Like Rebecca, what you would like to see from your advisees in terms of communication. And then Emily, I'd be curious from your end, kind of what you found is the best way to communicate with your advisor to really nurture a good relationship.
In terms of communication, I really value one-on-one appointments. And so that can be really helpful to establish the relationship. And once we've kind of established the relationship, then the communication becomes really natural. I encourage students to reach out to me via email. And I know every advisor on campus has different practices with how they communicate with their students. But for me, I tell all of my students that if they send me an email during the week, I take a lot of pride in ensuring that I get back to them within 24 hours. And so I think generally advisors will get back to students within 24 to 48 hours during the week. But I want them to know that they are important to me, and I see their communications. And even if I don't have an immediate answer, I still want them to know that I saw it and I'm working on, finding an answer for them or a solution. So that's, the appointments and emails primarily the best way to get in touch with me. And drop-ins work as well within kind of the designated time frames of drop-in appointments, just because a lot of advisors have lots of back-to-back appointments with students. And so they have that time available for drop-ins, because if a student pops in like not during the drop-in hour, then they may not have time to meet with them at that point.
Going off of what Rebecca said, I find it really easy to talk with my advisor by making the appointments and just emailing. She's super open and gets back really fast in emailing. So when I was a freshman, I she really got to know me in my first advising appointment. And now that I'm a junior, she knows me really well. So it's like it's making that connection. And also from a student's perspective, you need to put in that effort to also meet them halfway and really get to know each other, because it's not you're not always like you go there for your advising appointment, but it can turn into just a normal conversation about how life is going and stuff like that. Like recently I just had mine in like towards the end of September, and she knew I was applying to pharmacy school, so she was asking me all about that. And she's like, as soon as you hear back, she was like, I want you to email me. Like she wants to hear how I'm doing, and they really get to know you as a student, which I really like. And another thing I really like that my advisor does is she my freshman year started a Google spreadsheet that has my whole plan on of the classes I've taken and what I'm going to take. So, and then she emails that to me and they do advising follow-ups, which I also really like because it really um gathers all the thoughts from the meeting into the email and she sends it to you. So it's always up to date, which I really like. So yeah.
Well, and I'm guessing that because you have nurtured that relationship, Emily, it makes it a lot easier for you to be honest when you're
Hmm.
sitting there and talking about what's going well, what maybe you're struggling with, if there's particular
Yeah.
classes. I'm guessing, Rebecca, that you've seen times where students you can tell are maybe only telling you like half the story, especially maybe if classes are not going quite as well. And I think that honesty can be hard for students to be vulnerable
Hmm.
about where they're struggling, but it's so important for you all to be able
Hmm.
to best advise them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's you I think for me, I approach advising by asking lots of questions, and trying to stay curious about what is going on with a student. And then things from there can kind of unfold more naturally. But I definitely I always ask them, how things are going and see what they're, ready to disclose at that point. And then, if I have their midterm grades and I see that maybe something's not quite going right and they're not, explicitly saying that, I'm like, well, I'm like, let's look at your midterm grades. Like, I noticed
Hmm.
this. Tell me what's going on here. And then, usually that'll prompt
Hmm.
them to provide more information. Um, and so I lead with curiosity. Um,
Yeah. I think going off that, something from a student's perspective is like freshman year, I like really struggled in general chemistry. And I was like really afraid to tell my advisor that. And like I ultimately needed a tutor for it. But it's also like they're not going to sit there and judge you for struggling in a subject. So I think like they're not going to sit, like I said, they're not going to sit there and judge you for struggling in a class, but they want to see you succeed and they can help you get the resources that you need to succeed. So it's also like this semester, I also had a really hard class that ultimately ended in me dropping it. And my advisor, like I talked to her and I was like, this is not like I don't think I will succeed in this class. So she agreed, like, we had a full conversation about it and then talked about what was best for me and my future. And so she was very open about me dropping it, and so she dropped it for me. So it's don't be afraid to talk to your advisor because they're ultimately there to help you get to your future goals.
And that's
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I'm really glad you talked to your advisor before dropping the class. Occasionally, I have seen where students and families have talked about, oh, my student's going to drop this class. It's not a big deal. They won't be a full-time student. Like they won't have 12 hours, but it's fine. And I'm like, oh no, you need to talk to somebody before you make those decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely like, even if you're not like, if you think you know the answer, or you're not quite sure, just shoot an email to your advisor and just check in to see like, is this, what is the impact if I make this choice? Because like Emily said, we're absolutely not here to judge the student in any way. I'm very open with my students about my own academic struggles and the things that happened during my undergraduate career. And we're absolutely here to advocate and help them along the way. We want them to succeed, and we'll do whatever we can in order to help them to do that. Sometimes if your student gets an academic alert because they're maybe not doing great in a class, like we'll send them an email saying, hey, can we find some time to touch base and see what's going on? It is not us calling them to the principal's office. We're not there to shame them or lecture them. We just want to see what's going on to see if there are resources on campus or adjustments that we could make in order for the student to succeed.
All right, we've got a couple of questions that have come in, so appreciate those. So Jamie's asking, do students need an appointment to register for classes or do they do it online on their own? Student has already had a preliminary appointment with the advisor.
Yes. So if they have met with their advisor and their advisor hold has been lifted, they will register on their own when their registration window opens. So that day and time that's listed on My UK degree planning and registration when they open it up is when they can submit their registration. They don't have to schedule an appointment to do that. They can do it from their dorm room. They can do it from Starbucks. Preferably they don't do it during class, but sometimes registration windows overlap with their classes. But yeah, they just need to do it during that registration window.
All right. So Terry's saying, my son has a registrar's hold on his account. That doesn't match the list of holds you showed. What could this mean?
Registrar's hold. I would email just registrar@uky.edu. Because that's kind of the general registrar's email box and say, hey, I have this hold, and they will tell you specifically what they need to do in order to get that lifted. It may be a transcript thing. It could be a lot of different things, but the registrar@uky.edu will be able to answer it.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation. And, there may be a phone number or something in My UK that should give the student a little bit more direction on how to get that hold lifted. All right, families encourage you to use that Q&A to ask any other questions. But while you're doing that, I've got one that I'm curious from Emily. We're talking to parents and families today, and I'm wondering how your family has supported you through these academic decisions you've been making. You mentioned just going through the pharmacy school application process. What's really been the best way that your family has shown you support as you've been going through this?
I think the best way my family has been showing me support is they constantly text me like supportive messages, even like when I'm going through a hard exam week. Like they know they're not being helicopter parents, that they're letting me drive like my own bus. And I think that's one of the greatest things I could ask for from them is they're just been super supportive, but not overbearing at the same time. And I always, since I live 8 hours away from home, I typically always call my parents anyway every day to just really have that connection with them. Because at the same time, yes, I'm very much used to living here now, but it is still very hard being away from my family. So I make that effort. I call my grandparents weekly. Like they're just so supportive, even if it's like, "We are so proud of you" text message, like, it goes a lot like, it may seem like so little to them, but to me, it, like, goes so far, and recently, I just had my pharmacy interview here on Friday, so they got to come down for fall break, and it was just really nice. They constantly send me cards, and I think just showing those little gestures goes a long way. I think that's the most supportive I could have ever asked for from them.
Well, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I'm not seeing any other open questions. So families, if you've got one on your mind, now's the last call. But while we're doing that, oh, good. What just came in? Good. It says, how does the registration window work? Is it based on seniority, first come, first serve, when your advisor meeting was? How is that determined?
So the registration windows are assigned by the registrar's office, and it is primarily based on the percentage of progress towards your degree. So the higher the percentage goes, the earlier you get to register. Occasionally, I mean, there are some populations of students, like students in the Honors College, that have a little bit earlier of a registration window, but the vast majority of students are assigned based on that percentage of degree progress.
Thanks for explaining that. And I think there's a link that we can put in the chat that addresses that as well. So I was getting ready to ask, and as we're moving towards wrapping up, but wondering if there's any other tips or best practices, things that we haven't touched on yet that you want to share before we wrap up from both Rebecca and Emily.
I think just being having your student be an active participant in their educational journey, being prepared when they come into their advisor's office with questions they have, or things that they want to talk about. Because, during their appointment, I'll talk about whatever they want to talk about. I'll help answer any questions that they have. But if they're not disclosing, things about themselves, then I don't know, and I can't help and support them in that way. So just being an active participant, being prepared and having questions for their advisor is a great way to really ensure that there is a good, strong relationship, and are able to utilize that as a resource throughout their time at UK.
I would also say what Rebecca said because you're advocating for your own educational journey, like being active in your journey, really helps and goes a long way, in my opinion, just going through it.
Thanks so much for those tips and that feedback. One of the other things that I noted is you all were talking and going through, and this makes me feel old to say this, but man, systems have come a long way. Like I'm just sitting here and yeah, okay, Rebecca's nodding, so it's not just me. I'm thinking back to like being there with like a hard copy like list of my degree requirements and like comparing that to a hard copy of schedule of classes and trying to figure out was I missing anything. So I look at these, the red X's and the green check marks, and I'm like, man, this is a lot easier than it used to be. Rebecca, you feeling that too?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just an extra layer of support. And I think it allows us to really dive deep into the relational aspect of our jobs, because we have the technology to look at like the course requirements and things like that. So advising is much more than just picking out courses for next semester, because we have tech that can do that, really like does the heavy lift for us in that terms. But it allows us and gives us space to really get to know your student and what their goals are, so that we can support them in reaching those next steps.
Yeah, that's such a great point that technology has moved things along so that yeah, the human piece of what we do here, which is so important to us here at UK, is really front and center. Kate just sent me a private chat that said I was thinking the same thing. She said I highlighted the course booklet. I'm like, yep, y'all don't even know this used to be much more cumbersome.
I registered on the phone with the touchpad.
Yes, yes, I did both at my undergraduate institution. I had to go like physically register in person. Like I had somebody
Mhm.
from the registrar's office, like typing it into a central computer. And then, yeah, when I got here to UK for grad school, it was absolutely registering on the phone. Emily's like, oh my gosh, y'all are so old. Well, I so appreciate both of you taking time to share about priority registration and academic advising with the parents and families. I think this was really helpful, and I always learn a lot about the student experience when I hear these conversations. And again, Rebecca in particular, know how many advising appointments you're taking right now to get students ready for their registration windows to open. And Emily just coming back after fall break and pharmacy interviews and all that. So I know y'all are so busy and really appreciate your time. Families, we know you're busy as well. And so we hope this was a good use of your time and helps you to better support your Wildcat in their academic journey. I want to thank Kate as always for being behind the scenes and putting those links and relevant info in the chat. But we'll wrap up for now and wish all of you a great rest of your day. And I always like to sign off with a hearty go Cats. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.